FIDE master at the age of 7, international master at the age of 10, and grandmaster at the age of 12. Yes, I'm talking about Indian superstar Praggnanandhaa. It is his birthday today, so fabulous birthday greetings to Praggnanandhaa. And in this video, I'm going to show you 3 of his best games chosen by Praggnanandhaa himself. So while I tell you about Praggnanandhaa, you can consider your move here in these 3 positions, and let's get started. So I saw Praggnanandhaa for the first time while I was studying in Velamal school. In fact, Praggnanandhaa has also been supported by Velamal. One of the minor challenges in the initial years for me was to actually write his name, and then after sending his entries to a lot of tournaments, I eventually got hang of it. So since I was the leader of the chess group in Velamal at that stage, so I was sending his name to a lot of different tournaments. And yes, I also saw his sister there, and she also studies in Velamal, and she became India's latest international master. So both these young talents, they are quite great, especially in tactics. And so Praggnanandhaa played World Youth Championship in the under 8 category, and then he won the event. So he was awarded the FIDE Masters title automatically. And then in 2016, he won the World Under 10 at the age of 10. And then he also became International Master in 2016. So that was again a great accomplishment. Becoming an IM at the age of 10 was amazing. So it was a world record. He became a GM in 2018 in Italy after making his final norm there. And he was then the second youngest person to achieve the rank of GM. It took him 12 years, 10 months and 13 days. So that was a remarkable accomplishment. Also, his performance at the Isle of Man was buzzing around in social media. They loved his games that he played in Isle of Man. And I'm also going to show you a game from there. And then after that, Praggnanandhaa was very consistent. He has won a lot of tournaments. You have seen him win even Title Tuesdays, and you have seen him play great games in Junior Speed Chess Championship. So now it's time to look at some of his best games according to Praggnanandhaa. Let's get started. Here I have his game that he played against Backman XL, where he was black and his opponent was 2645. And here Praggnanandhaa was black, and after d4, knight f6, bishop f4. This is a modernized London. White is delaying the development of the knight to f3. After g6, knight c3, it's now taking shape into Jobava London. But after d5, queen d2, it has flavors of barrier attack. So the white usually goes pretty early with bishop h6 and sometimes goes h4, e3, bishop e2 as well. And among the Indians, I have seen Ravi Teja and CRG Krishna employ this a lot. After queen d2, bishop g7, bishop h6, castles, bishop g7, king g7, XL castled on the queen side, and Praggnanandhaa went with c5, countering the center. On d takes e5, he was probably intending to go knight c6, and then if white goes e3, he had queen a5 in mind. So in this game, e3 happened, and then after knight c6, f3, Praggnanandhaa decides to close the center with c4. He wants to play on the queen side because the king is on the queen side. And then after e4, Praggnanandhaa goes b5 immediately. And here if white captures knight takes b5, it works in black's favor because black can go rook b8, attack the knight. And once the knight retreats, you can go queen to a5, giving a lot of initiative on the queen side. If white goes something like knight a3 in the position, then there is also queen b6, provoking the b2 pawn, and if c3, then there is bishop a6, and black has a great position. Coming back after b5, e takes d5 happened. Now this pawn on d5 is not going anywhere, so Praggnanandhaa goes for knight to b4, keeping an eye on this pawn on e2. Now with this move, what he is trying to do is trying to provoke his opponent to play a3. But if his opponent had played a3, then Praggnanandhaa had knight d5 in mind, and now this pawn on a3 acts like a hook, and it also helps in accelerating the attack with b4. In the game, his opponent played knight takes b5, and Praggnanandhaa picked up the pawn on e2 because the drawback of knight coming to b5 is that the pawn on e2 is no longer protected, and after king b1, he plays queen takes d5. Now in this position, king takes knight is impossible because of the discovered check with c3, winning the queen. And so after queen takes d5, his opponent played knight to a3. But I want to show you what happens in knight c7. So it feels like, oh, there is a fork, but Praggnanandhaa has it all under control. He has queen b7 in this position. If the knight is taken, then the knight will be taken. And if the rook is taken, then I hope you see that there is a dangerous move with c3, threatening a mate on b2 and also attacking the queen. If queen goes to c1, there is a knight on e2. So in this position, knight c7 doesn't work, so his opponent played knight e3. Now this is a good moment for you to see what you would do as black. Okay, I hope you have thought about it, and now the correct move is c3. Attacking the queen, shattering the pawn structure. It's an attempt to open up the cover, and if the queen goes, let's say, to f2, then it's already lost because black can play rook b8. And so after c3, his opponent played pawn takes pawn, and now rook b8 check. King has to move to a1 and then queen to a5. Now this is a move that was not so easy to spot from a distance. Praggnanandhaa had seen this all in advance. The point is that this knight cannot move. Let's say you play knight to c4, then there is this queen a4, and next move knight c3 is coming. And after queen a5, if white plays something like king takes a2, which happened in the game, Praggnanandhaa brings another piece into the attack with knight d5. And unfortunately for white, there is no way to protect the pawn on c3. The knight cannot go back, the king cannot protect it, and if knight goes to e2 in this position, like it happened in the game, he had bishop e6. So again knight c3 is there, and the c3 is going to fall. With that, even the king on e2 will fall. And in this position, his opponent resigned. The point is, after bishop e6, if white plays c4, there is knight b4 check, and king a1, of course, the knight hangs on a3. So if king goes to b2, then there is a discovered check. Remember, the rook is there, and then again it's a mate. So if you go king a2, black has bishop into c4 or rook b2. Both of them lead to the same checkmate. So that was a stellar game by Praggnanandhaa against XL Backman. He won the game in just 18 moves against a 2600 plus grandmaster. Next, we have his game against Veselin Topalov. Here Praggnanandhaa was white. Let's get started. It was a French defense, and Praggnanandhaa was white here. After knight c6, bishop e2, castles, c takes d4. This is a continuation that's not really popular. And after knight d4, bishop d4, knight b8 is quite common in such positions. And after knight b8, Praggnanandhaa goes with bishop f2, and after bishop a6, he finds a chance to immediately play for initiative after bishop a6 and f5. And now the point is that if e takes f5 happens, then the pawn on d5 loses the support. Let's say if black ignores this pawn takes f5 and simply plays a move like rook c8, then Praggnanandhaa would just continue with rook a d1 and the game goes on. But in the game, Topalov captured on f5, and then Praggnanandhaa played knight takes d5, and after knight b4, he protects the knight on d5 with pawn to c4. His opponent goes rook c8, and Praggnanandhaa asks a question to this knight as where it wants to go with a3, and then after knight c6, the pawn on e5 is attacked, so he simply protects it. So if you see that Praggnanandhaa is not trying to do anything extraordinary, but he's just playing the most obvious moves in the position, keeping everything in control. And you can already see that white's pawns are better placed when compared to black's. These pawns are doubled, and but this pawn on e5 is like keeping an eye on very important squares d6 and f6. And after bishop c5, he plays b4, and after bishop f2, queen d7. Here he finds a nice way to like get his pieces towards the king side. First he goes with queen to h4, a very good example of coordination. The tactical error follows here. After queen h4, black probably had to go king h8, but he goes queen d8. And if white plays queen f2, then it would be a repetition. But Praggnanandhaa had something prepared in his mind. So a good moment for you to figure out what you would do as white. This position was also part of the exercise initially. Yes, the move is knight to f6 check, compelling black to play g takes f6. Now there is something common between this position and the position I showed you earlier. It's connected with shattering the pawn structure of your opponent. If king goes to h8, there is a mate on h7, so g f6. And now b8e, bringing all toys. Praggnanandhaa brings his rook into action with rook a d1, and then black is in huge trouble now. If the queen moves to c6, just e takes f6 and there is a mate. For example, if black tries to run with king h8, there is rook d3 followed by rook h3. Is nobody going to support h7 pawn. So after rook a1, his opponent Topalov decided to give up his queen with knight e5, and then he picked up the queen and then won the game. So I think this was the highlight of the game. Next I have his game against Ravi Teja, and Praggnanandhaa considers this as also one of his best games. So as I mentioned, 3 games. So here this is his game against Ravi Teja, where Praggnanandhaa is white and he employs the h4 line, which is one of the trending lines in the chess world. After h5 he goes for c4 and then knight c3 and then knight ge2. On d takes c4 he played knight g3, bishop g6, bishop g5, queen b6, bishop into c4. My hunch is that all this was prepared at home by Praggnanandhaa. After queen takes b4 he goes for knight ce4, knight f5 and then castles. So the critical position for me is after knight takes g3, what would you do as white? Okay, the reason I feel that this was all well prepared at home is because there is a correspondence game that is very similar to this game that happened, and the moves are matching at least until 23. But after knight takes g3, if you play f takes g3, you can see that the e4 knight is hanging. If knight takes g3, then black can simply play knight d7. So it seems as if that there are no problems for black. But Praggnanandhaa has this Zwischenzug Zug or intermediate move, rook to b1 attacking the queen. Now what this move does is that rook is now keeping an eye on b7 pawn, and that's the 7th rank pawn. So after rook b1, his opponent played queen a3 and then f takes g3, a very simple capture. And now the knight on e4 is actually given. Here his opponent decided to capture the knight with bishop takes e4, and now it's a great moment to pause and think what you would do as white. And this was also the diagram that I gave you initially. Here the move is rook takes f7, a brilliant move. If black takes bishop into b1 in this position, white can actually play queen takes b1. The point is that if king takes the rook, there is mate in 4. Okay, 5 seconds for you to figure out the mate in 4. Congratulations if you found queen to f5. The point is, if king g8 there is a direct mate, and if the king goes to e8 there is queen e6, and then there is queen c8, and then there is mate. So after rook f7, bishop b1 is not possible. So let's say king takes f7. Then there is a rook takes b7 check again, and now the king has to move. If the king goes to e8, then since the rook is on b7, just imagine if you can bring your queen to the 7th rank. Yes, you can by playing queen f1. Idea is queen f7. This threat is too difficult for black to parry. If black plays something like knight d7, then there is bishop takes e6, pushing the knight away. And if bishop e7, just simply rook takes e7 and queen e1, again threatening to play queen b4. This is also winning. So after rook takes f7, king f7, rook b7, if king goes to g6, then white can win with bishop takes e6. The threat is to play bishop f7 check and queen takes h5. If black plays something like queen d3, there is bishop f7 check, and after king h7, there is queen takes h5. But in this position, there is one move that black can actually go for. For example, after rook takes f7, king f7, rook takes b7, king goes to g6, and then bishop f7, bishop takes e6, and then queen d3, bishop f7, king f5. So this would have been like an interesting way to continue just for the sake of the continuation. But even in this variation, white wins with this move. Queen c1, idea is queen f4, checkmate. Beautiful variations. I'm amazed by the possibilities. And in the game, what happened was after rook takes f7, Ravi Teja played queen takes g3, and then the mate on g2 was threatened, so he simply defends it with rook f2, and then after b5, again a beautiful move by Praggnanandhaa, taking advantage of this queen on g3. The queen on g3 is unprotected, so he doesn't really care about the c4 bishop. So this is also a good quality to have when your opponent is attacking your piece. don't immediately look after the possibilities that are related to moving the attack piece, but see if you can do some counter attack. Here the move is queen e1, attacking the bishop, but more than that, threatening a deadly rook takes f8. And after bishop f5, he played bishop takes e6, again forcing the bishop to move so that rook f8 is achievable. And here his opponent decided to give up his queen with queen takes f2, and then it was a matter of technique. After bishop takes e6, Praggnanandhaa wants to open the lines for his pieces because black is lagging behind in development. You can see all the pieces are on the first rank. So here he plays d5, and after c takes d5 goes for queen c2, and then after bishop e7, king e7, he goes for queen c7, and then until here there was a correspondence game, by the way. And then after bishop d7, he goes for e6, again opening more lines, so that after king e6, rook e1 also becomes a possibility. His opponent played rook c8, and then after queen b7, he picked up the rook on a8 and then won the game. Even here, the queen is not getting trapped, by the way. If you're wondering that the queen is getting trapped, no, it's coming out safely. So in a few moves, his opponent resigned. So those were 3 picks of Praggnanandhaa, and I really loved covering them. I hope you liked watching the video, and do give it a thumbs up. Do like the video, and a great birthday to Praggnanandhaa. We wish him a great year ahead, and dear viewers, I'll be back with another video soon. You let me know which of Praggnanandhaa's games you liked a lot in the comments. I'll be back again. Until then, take care. Bye bye.